Hey, what's happening, guys? I just made actually a video on this deck, some gameplay. This list is a bit different now. I've actually changed it around pretty heavily about twice now. I even made a deck list for this, and then I instantly changed about like 8 cards, so I deleted that video and I remade this. But anyway, I'm gonna move my photo off the little thing off the side here. I just wanted to give you a good look at my face real quick, because I know you guys love me, but we're going to talk about this deck, Commanding Gohan. I think this is a mastery that people have been shitting on a lot, and I was kind of on like it looks kind of like okay, let's see what the support looks like, but I think there are certain MPs that take advantage of this mastery really well, um, and I think Gohan is one of them. He's got the selective rejuve on his new level 1. He's got rejuve on every one of his levels actually in the new stack, but being able to pull stuff out of his pile selectively to set up your mastery attack, being able to just keep you alive with red that doesn't really have a lot of endurance, especially the cards that synergize well with this mastery. Level 3, also another way to clean up your pile, and another just goes with the theme of reusing the attacks with the commanding mastery. His level 3 selectively can get a bunch of cards out of your pile in a way so they're not clogging you up. Um, Even if they're dead, you can just pitch if your opponent gives you a dead choice card, you can always just pitch to the mastery, which is great. And then of course level 4, keep you in the game longer, more card draw, and if your card is crap, pitch it. Um, Ultimately, this has a lot of potential, and I think there are definitely multiple ways to build this. I took some keys from Eric Ing's Mini Gohan that he played me with. Um, I know some people want to fix it on like certain combos like Red Leap with Gohan. I don't think that's not what I'm doing in this. Now this deck initially started off as more of a MPPV list than anything. I had all the tuner cards that I could in here. I had as many cards that synergized with Master as possible in here. I've since kind of tweaked the deck down a bit. I took some cards out that I knew I didn't really want to ever see in my hand or play. I also understood that like certain cards I don't actually need because they do a little too much. Like I already have enough. Um, it's like running a blue deck with like Energized Strike, Legendary Blast, Head Knock, Wall Breaker. All you run every anti-anger card that you can, and then you realize that yeah, I don't actually need all of these. I can do the job better or about the same with less of these. And that's kind of what I went through between playing this deck and then also building the deck and looking at it more. So I've taken a shift. I was initially a little bit more physical heavy and more pure anger. I've since kind of backed off the gas pedal a little bit on the pure anger. I threw some more utility in terms of the attacks. And by utility, I mean more recyclability, more beats. This kind of this is not how it was built before. It didn't have a lot of damage per se, other than Gohan's really intense AT, which is or rather immense AT, which is an F on every one of his levels. He gets up there. Um, I threw some more energies in here, or rather, I at least kind of adjusted around. I threw some more and kind of adjusted around the stage cost cards in my deck a bit. And I also threw some more cards that use the anger resource mechanic of the mastery, which I think is still very good. It's a bummer. A lot of people scrapped a lot of decks once they saw the change to the mastery once it got released from the preview, but I think it's still very good. And again, I think right now this mastery is something that either needs more support for everyone to be able to use it consistently, since you have to run certain cards that can actually play with your pile. And I'll go over those cards, some older cards, but all the new cards that came out work very, very well with this mastery. So we'll run through the list. Again, this started as more of a pure MPPV, now it's dedicated. Now it's become more of a Beats MPPV hybrid, more of Beats than anything. But Ready Relaxation at 3, Destiny at 3, Foreshadowing Drill at 3. I'm just going to run over these quick relaxations. Red Staple, it's hard to not run this card. Card advantage. We also get Destiny, MPPV Staple. What's nice is that you don't have to necessarily, even if you draw this card dead, any of these cards dead, they all can be pitched to the mastery. So I'm only running 9 dead cards essentially here. Um, what's really nice is Foreshadowing Drill. This card is amazing. You can discard it to your mastery, like your opponent's anger too. Super clutch. I've used it. I love this card. If I could have this card in my hand like every combat in just some of these metas that we've had now, like anger is a real thing that you have to think about. Not to mention, all these cards give you like the mid-tempo range to allow you to just pass on your opponent, and you can even enter with these cards on the board after playing them, and you still get quite a bit of utility out of them. But Force Energy Drill is going to be a staple in red commanding for almost everyone. The fact that it lets you rearrange the bottom through your pile, but not to mention it's got a lower anger power, and if you're Namekian trait, your next attack deals a cost -2 stages to perform, which is going to be really good for Gohan, Kami, Piccolo, obviously, but I think Kami especially, being able to tutor this drill out, um, getting to cherry pick his attacks that he wants. Also, just Kami needing like stages being one thing that really has always crippled Kami. Not to mention red needing stage gain. So I think this is just another great support card. But this card is incredible. Absolutely, by far, I think my favorite card in the deck. Um, yeah, probably my favorite card in the deck is this card, to be completely honest. It is so good. I love it. I really, really love this card. But we get onto the block line and the events. So we're going to start with, well, triple sphere. I just added this. I didn't actually have spheres in the initial build or in the second round 2 build that I made the first video on that I ended up deleting. Need sphere. Too many events that are strong as hell. Times of Warrior's Tool is in here because it's time. And then we go into, oh, I didn't put the numbers on these yet, sorry, I just did that. So I'm running 9 physical blocks dedicated. Blocking hand is just a staple anger. Disregard, the banish 10 from your pile is huge. Setting up your mastery, huge. Uh, that's really all I got to say about that. This card is like I think going to be staple status as well as red elbow block. This card letting you rearrange your bottom 5 of your pile, and both of these having endurance means that if you don't want them in the pile, you can just banish them when you take them as damage. Red disregard, of course, you can even stack these up for a chain banish, which is really cool. We do have a couple cards. There's like one card in the deck that can chain banish these other than disregard itself. But all these anger deck, I just want to make sure that I have the stages. I have a fair amount of energies. I need the physicals to stop that. All these cards are really good on their own, so that's why I have them at 9. I'm also leveling, so ideally I can deal with stage beats pretty well. Not to mention level 2 has some stage gain, level 4 has some stage gain, and level 3 can just start cherry picking blocks back to my hand. So ideally, I shouldn't get shit on too hard by physical decks, as long as I don't get stuck on 1, even on 2. But, you never know. I have a lot of stage cost cards in this deck, and I added more to this deck, so I guess we'll see. Or no, actually, the number's about the same. Is the exact same as before, but we'll see. I think I almost want to run more physical blocks, which just sounds pretty nuts, or like on the move, but this is what I started with. We get into the energy block line. I actually only had these 6 originally, and then I wanted to throw more endurance in, and since a lot of people are playing energy decks, I was like, I'll throw a 1 of red brace. It loops itself, it lowers anger, raises anger. But both these cards have great pitch effects, which having some extra blocks as backup like brace in my deck means that I won't be as tempted or as scared to pitch these against an energy matchup. Pitch these to use them for their great effects. Sacrifice just giving you some more burst anger. I mean, there's a lot of 2 anger cards in the deck and multiple anger cards that you pitch sacrifice and master, and all of a sudden sacrifice, and all of a sudden you've spun like 3-4 anger pretty easily. Not to mention it makes the attack unpreventable that you copied. Energy deflection is this card is amazing. I love it. Just playing it as a block is great. Getting stage gain in red is always good. But the parenthetical is amazing as well. It is so good. I love this card so much because it lets you. The way the wording is you discard it from your hand. Period. Then you get to choose 3 styled cards and shuffle them into your life deck. You can set up the master attack. It's just another way to set up the mastery for success. So plus to shuffle your deck and get some cards back in, always good. And then I said 1 of this. So I would pretty heavy in the block line. Like I said, 7, 9, so 17 blocks total on top of leveling and rejuve. So you should be able to take a bit of a beating with this. The endurance in this deck isn't too crazy high. There's also Destiny 2 for some damage modifier if you get that out, but between the rejuve and then leveling, ideally in the stage beats, like you kind of, in some way, you kind of have every angle covered. Like you have enough blocks and anger to try to level against stage beats to deal with stage damage. You have enough energy blocks, rejuve, and stage pressure that energy decks shouldn't be getting to run away on you. Um, so those are all just things to consider in terms of the deck design and choice that I made here. We get into the attack line, the final cards of the deck. So I didn't have heel kick in my initial build. I put it in round 2, and I didn't play with round 2 again. That was the video, and I thought, you know what? If I'm going to run this card, I might as and I'm going to go a little more beats. I might as well throw this card in. But 3 of this card lets me recycle my tech more, helps me play with my pile more. Like we're just going to be constantly goofing with my pile, and that is like a weak and a strong point of the deck is that I have such good pile synergy. Um, Even if my pile gets messed with a little bit, like if people are selectively killing my pile and goofing with my pile, I still have ways to get what I want with heel kick and my level 3 Gohan. So what's nice is with the anger as a resource mechanic that this card has, you're raising your anger 1, lowering it 2, but then you immediately get your anger back, so it essentially becomes a free just grab a card out of your pile. So it helps with the beats with the mastery here. Not to mention Red Double Strike, another just double anger card. Really what it's here for. Like I said, Gohan is an F, so these AT physicals aren't the worst in the world, especially once you start, considering that he has flat stage damage and that he starts to get stage modifiers as he goes up. His level 1 and 2 are going to be able to really knock your opponent's AT down and make it so that your AT starts climbing up in your opponent fast. And it also helps you even out against other stage beats decks. So Meal Kick at 2 because attachment hate is always good. You gotta run Meal Kick, I think, in like every red deck. Doesn't matter what it is. Maybe not so much now because of a new card that came out, but 2 of it, absolutely. Gotta make sure Wallbreaker don't get me. Red Crest 2, I had it at 3. Again, MPPV build was the initial build. Dropped it to 2 because it's a cost 4, and I have a lot of other 2 anger cards that I find myself copying way more than this card. Not to mention with the amount of pile play I have. Again, I cut down the pile play cards by quite a bit. I had to make a Red Onslaught in here. I had 3 of the next card that I'm about to talk about in here, and it was just kind of too much. And so, and again, this is like a usable card with Heel Kick now being in the deck. With Heel Kick now being in the deck, it's like I can run this at 2 if I really want to see the anger bad, and I want to get it. It's there. Red Smash. Now this card is really cool. This card was initially at 3. I dropped it to 2. This card is amazing. The hit effect on this is so valuable. It lets you clean out your entire pile and set it up exactly how you want it to. Not to mention you get to at least start killing cards out of the top 3 initially. Nobody blocks this attack ever. Nobody realizes how strong this attack is. And especially in a commanding deck, it is incredible. And it has synergy with red disregards, so you can chain banish some red disregards potentially. It's just a combo to note. You're probably never really going to pull it off, but just something to consider. But this card is mostly for cleaning out the pile really heavily. And between Gohan level 1, this, and then just keep rejuving with the level 2, then getting out to 3, where you're starting to like actually clean it up. Like if you don't like cards in the pile, you just rejuvenate them with Gohan power. You have Red Smash, you have the level 1, you have Foreshadowing Drill if you get that out, you have Energy Deflection, you have Elbow Block. Like there's a lot of cards that play with the pile, and that's just the theme that you want to go with, and at the top of Heel Kick. So your pile is your resource. Your pile is your second hand with this deck, and your opponent really has to, even decks that can control your pile pretty well, you have enough tools to sculpt your pile pretty well, and most of your attacks are generally universally useful. In terms of the pure anger cards, at least in the physical lineup, they're pretty useful. The energy lineup is where it's kind of more of our tech, because that's where most of Red's tech has kind of come, is through the energy lineup. But I'm just going to round out the physical attacks with the 3 freestyle ones. Again, Power Punch, amazing 2 anger card, AT5. You monster AT. Dev Blow, because you need to be able to counter people's piles and have anti-anger. And then Dashing Punch is anti-anger, and just the chain anger is huge. Not to mention this card can actually keep your pile clean too, which is really nice because it makes damage banished. It's kind of the same mentality that the Ruthless decks running this card had, is that it does just keep your pile clean. We get into the energy techs. Now again, like I said, most of the tech is here. These numbers have all been played with, and I even added in two of the cards on the end here, but we're going to start with the staple, Red Energy Blast at 3. It's always going to be, there's always going to be a lot of ally and drill decks. They're just so strong and powerful. So running that at 3 is just a kind of a no-brainer, especially considering I'm not running Awakening Gohan 1 or 3. Yeah, that's really just the tech card. Not to mention the fact that it's not banished after use. I can keep rejuvenating into my deck. I can play them with heal kick. I can play them with mastery. I mean, I want this at 3. I want to make sure that I have my drill and ally matchup covered very, very well, and this card does that. Without a doubt, does that. I also don't have any crit effects in my deck really, other than my mastery effect, which is a once a turn. If I level, I can get a crit effect. I forget this effect all the time. If you're gonna see my gameplay that I did with this deck for the first game I have on this deck, I didn't even use that power once. I completely forgot about it the entire time. But incredible, great card. We move on to Lightning Cutter as our next tech card. So again, our board clear, we have pretty good board clear between these two cards. Lightning Cutter does have to hit, but essentially because of the mastery, it becomes a free destroy all your opponent's setups or attach cards. And that's another reason why I can run Mule Kick at 2 pretty safely, knowing that this is in the deck, and you can probably sneak this one through. Again, as far as Wallbreaker hate goes for MPPV or whatever, or even against attach card decks, like these two cards are both not banished after use. Neither is this. So my two main board clear cards, neither banished after use. Both can be grabbed with heal kick. Both can be done with the mastery, relaxation. I can rejuvenate them, level 3 them. I just have so many tools to get them that you know I really do. Between how the damage comes across the deck with the rejuve, the high amount of blocks, and anger, I have all of my bases really covered very well in my mind in terms of dealing with a matchup. I have even what we're going to get into again. Most of the tech I say is on the energies, but Stack Shot to help me clean out games with beats. I have it at 2 because I had it at 3 and I had to make room for other stuff. And I don't really like to copy this card because it's not an immediate 2 anger, but it's there. Another wall breaker card, another card to help me deal some crit damage, help me put down the beats, and it's 2 anger. It's just staple. But Red Expunge, this is like on par with like almost like the Meki and Maxwell in terms of anti-anger value. Not to mention this actually has synergy with if you look at the parenthetical when it's banished from by one of your effects, it has synergy with Red Smash. It has synergy with Red Disregard if I need to in a pinch. These are just little combos that you have to keep in mind that they might come in clutch 1 out of every 10 games, but that 1 out of 10 games that you do it, you're going to appreciate it. But again, becomes because of the way that the mastery is worded, you're going to lower your anger 1 to lower your opponent's anger 2. This becomes a free energy for 6, lower your opponent's anger 2, and if it hits, they lower their anger 2 again, and you could potentially crit them to lower their anger 5 total. So yeah, this card's in here. This is mostly going to be one of those cards that you're not going to really want to see if you're trying to, like, depending on the matchup, you're not going to even care if you see it. You're going to just pitch it to mastery. It's going to be a card that you maybe banish away. But in the right matchup, this is a card that you're going to be looping a shitload with heal kick, relaxation, commanding. I keep going through all the combos because I'm just so excited because I've also already done this, but I've hyped myself up so much about this deck because I really like a lot of the combos, and there's just so many bases covered by Red Energy. It's just another reason why like Yamcha and 18 are looking really good now, especially with this card. But with this mastery even, they have some new combos. Just all the combo damage MPs and the hybrid beats MPs like Goku are going to really like all this. And then as our final card, Guilty Flash. I didn't have this card in. Same with this card in. These cards didn't come in until build 2.0. This card came in at 3.0. But I was like, why not? Might as well run it at 2. I don't want too many stage cost cards, and I'm not always going to want to copy this. It's not always a card I'm going to be happy to see, especially if I'm trying to level, but if I find myself just needing to lay down the beatdown, this is a 12 life card swing with the mastery. And not to mention, it starts to do some stage damage, which that doesn't really matter too much, but once they get in the 3 and the 4, start to deal some decent life card damage. Um, Again, these two on the end here, even this one, like these all here. I honestly say every one of these energies is going to be a card that's subject to be one of your first um, targets that you're banishing out of your pile with like Smash or Disregard, or you just want it out of the way. But in the right matchup, you're going to be looping these three quite a bit. This is just going to be there to like close out a game on someone. You can use this card because of its high damage value and the fact that you could potentially use it 2-3 times, like for double use each time with this mastery very easily in this deck. It's going to be a card that can just kind of give you some. It kind of just increases your OTK potential. That's what this is for, especially with Static Shot going. So yeah, that's the attack line. It started off as a more MPPV, and I've kind of cut back on the MPPV and run more Anger as a resource, more utility, and I think it's got a lot of potential. Again, I could almost see myself running like more blocks on the move, or like another red physical block. As far as which one it would be, like Duck maybe, or Catch. Take your pick really on those two. I think Catch is almost better in this meta. Just that mess with Pile, but where it's at looks really good. Uh, Gohan's Backlash is an interesting card, but I just really want to make sure MPPV is live. And I already have, and it's the No Endurance non-styled card. Red Tandem Attack, Red Tandem Blast, both two cards. Really, really good. Red Tandem Blast might need to make its way in here because it's just so valuable in terms of how much it can just completely shut down entire decks. But for now, I just don't have the room for it, and it's just pure utility with no anger. Yeah, Red Tandem Attack, of course, being really good against all the decks that are drawing a bunch and have big hands, but again, it's kind of just a really bland card otherwise. Not even, it's a single anger, no tech physical. So there are just better cards to run. That's why they're not in here. But not a lot of endurance. None of my energy attacks have endurance, except Lightning Cutter. Um, One of my physicals has endurance. So the attack cards are going to be always in your pile. The blocks, these two are going to be ones that you're going to have times where you're just going to be wanting to banish these out a lot out of your pile. But for the most part, most of the stuff that you do really want to copy again. None of the only attacks that are banished after use are heal kick and smash. Otherwise, everything and dashing. Otherwise, you can loop all this other stuff. So you just have a lot of options. I mean, with Deathblow being the deck too, it's like, granted it's not styled, but there's just so many cards that you can loop very, very well for their utility. So it's like with the way the deck is built, it has all the bases covered on paper. Anger, Ball is like the one thing, but that's where like Guilty Flash and Static Shot and the board clear comes in, where you're just gonna try to beat them down, or you MPPV on them. Again, and because it's a pretty mid-range deck, we can sit and build board and build up state before entering. You can be really aggressive because of the mastery to just pitch all the dead cards. I have pile utility, I have rejuve. This deck has just got everything that I like. It just looks really, really solid. And if you want to try this deck out, I'm going to be running this. I might try to do some more different versions of this, where I maybe cut down on some of the energies more, run more drills, try to do that kind of thing. But at that point, I feel like I'm better off running Goten or Vegito, both of which I think are going to have a really good time in this mastery. So, but I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it's a bit of a long video for deck list, but I'm really excited about it. So much so that I had to remake the deck and redo the list. I pointed out most of the main combos and the theories behind it. And if you did watch this all, I really appreciate it. And I think this set is really kick-ass. I think everyone is really quick to judge, but this has been an incredible set for me so far as a deck builder. So anyway, guys, take it easy. Peace.